Hey guys, Miss Finian here. We are starting semester 2 U.S. history, and we're going to continue with the Great Depression. Hope you guys had a good Christmas break and you're ready to learn. If you have your learning target sheet out and your vocab sheet, that will help you so you can highlight words and make sure jot some things down on your learning target sheet. So we're on learning target 5.1. I can describe the causes of the Great Depression. And our overall essential question is, how does the economic success or failure of America change American systems and the lives of individuals? All right. So first we want to remember that we had the Roaring 20s that we just talked about, and business was booming, and the Jazz Age and the Harlem Renaissance and women's rights and prohibition. So remember all of that because now we're coming into a different time period. So these were all the economic problems that were happening or going on right at the end of the 1920s. There's a decline in agriculture, textiles, and coals, and we'll talk about where specifically those came from. High tariffs, so those are taxes on imports and exports, and poor European economic policies. After World War I, we became isolationist again, so we were not so open to other countries or getting imports or giving them exports. There's uneven distribution of wealth. They're making too much stuff. That's overproduction, overuse of credit, and then over-speculation, real estate, and stocks. We're going to cover each of those in this PowerPoint today. So all of these are causes of the Great Depression. So you may just want to write causes at the top there. Okay, so 1928, we talked about Herbert Hoover. He becomes president after Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge just chose not to run, and so instead the Republicans nominated Herbert Hoover, who was his Secretary of Commerce, if you'll remember, and he was also known because he ran the Food Administration during World War I. He was a very beloved man, very great leader. In the Democrats, I had Alfred E. Smith. He was a four-time governor of New York, but he was the first Catholic to win the party's nomination. You have to remember this is a time of nativism, and people aren't really into Catholics at that time, and so they were kind of suspicious of him. And so because of this, President Hoover is going to win the election. He wins with 444 electoral votes to Smith's 87. If you remember, you have to have 270 electoral votes, but at this time in 1928, they only had to have 266, which is only 4 less. But Hoover basically clobbers Al Smith, and he's very popular. He comes into his presidency on top of his game, okay? Which is going to be interesting because he's not going to leave that way. All right, so uneven distribution of wealth. So we have this girl sitting here at the radio, and this just talks about basically poor money management and banking policies. So there's all these new things like credit and banks and loans that are taking place, and for all of these things that have been mass produced. So the problem is that even though all of these new things happen, the uneven distribution of wealth, if you remember, a very small percentage of the population has most of the wealth in the country, it didn't stop. The poor and the middle class also wanted these luxury items, such as cars and radios. Everybody wanted them. It didn't really matter how much money they had. And so how would they do that? How would they get it? The problem to that is that products could be purchased on credit. So the concept of buy now and pay later caught on really quickly during during the 1920s, which is going to be one of the things that causes the Great Depression, okay? Because people aren't going to be able to pay this stuff back. And we've kind of already talked about this in the 20s a little bit. There had been credit before for businesses, but this was the first time personal consumer credit was available. So if you worked for a business, businesses would give other businesses credit. But this one, basically, you can see select what you need, arrange convenient terms, and enjoy immediate delivery. So when we were talking about in the 20s, people getting credit, if you'll remember, they'll get credit one place and then they'll go to another place, and there's no electronic computer system that's going to track how many places they've taken out credit for. So this is going to cause a major disaster. By the end of the 1920s, 60% of the cars and 80% of the radios were bought on installment credit. And installment credit is one of your vocab words, and it's basically you pay a down payment and then you're going to pay monthly. So if you look, this is for a Corona, which is not beer, by the way. This is for a typewriter. And so you can kind of read this advertisement, and it talks about $22.50 places in your hand and the balance in easy payments. Okay, and so people are going to start doing this thinking that they can pay for it, but all of these things they buy on installment credit are going to add up. Okay, so that brings us to stocks. Okay, so stocks are units of ownership in a company, and why do people buy stocks? They buy stock to invest in a company, and this is so the company can research better ways to make things, create new products, improve the products they have, hire more employees, enlarge or modernize their buildings. And if you had extra money, you would want to invest in a company, because when you invest in a company, you can get a return on your investment, or you can make money off of it. Okay, so what is the stock market? The stock market is an everyday term we use to talk about a place where stocks and bonds are traded, meaning bought and sold. For many people, it's the first thing that comes to mind for investing. This is how people invest and make money over time. The goal is to buy the stock and you hold it for a long time. And if you hold it for a long time and you sell the stock when it's at a higher price, you get more than what you paid for it. You should hang on to stock. For investors who hold stock for 15 years or more usually succeed in the market. The problem is that people started investing in the stock market right before the Great Depression, but they didn't really have money to invest, and so they would sell it quickly. Okay, these are long-term investments, and there are no guarantees. Okay, so in the 1920s, the stock market experienced a long period of rising stock prices. What is this called? You should know what that's called, because that is one of your vocab words, and I'll give you a hint. It starts with a B, ends with an O, market. Okay, many invest using down payments. So this is also a vocab word where they buy stocks on the margin. So buying stocks on a loan, and you would have to pay these back later. So for example, basically you could put a small cash down payment as low as 10% of the price. So with $1,000, an investor can buy $10,000 worth of stock. The other $9,000 would come as a loan from a stockbroker who earned both the commission on the sale and interest on the loan. The thing about this is that if the price of the stock market kept rising, the investor can make a profit. For example, an investor who borrowed to buy $10,000 worth of stock only had to wait for it to rise to $11,000 in value. The investor can then sell the stock, repay the loan, and make $1,000 in profit. The problem is when you buy stocks on the loan, they could do this margin call. So if you were the person who was loaning the money, if you were the broker, you could call them at any time and demand the loan be repaid at once. So if you paid $10,000 for something and it immediately went up in price, you would try to sell it really quickly. Well, selling things really quickly and a lot of people selling at once is what's going to cause the prices to fall. Okay, and how do prices go up and down? How can you earn money? Company earns a lot, the prices go up. A company loses earnings, the prices go down. The other thing that's also a problem, and that is also one of your vocab words, is basically buyers just buying tons of stock in a company, hoping for it to go up really quickly, and that's called speculation. And when it doesn't go up quickly, then they will sell the stock. They'll sell the stock, and that will hurt the company. So if you can see, this is the business cycle from the 1920s all the way to the 1970s. So the 20th century is very up and down. It's a very, very unsteady. Okay, so you can see 1920s right after war. Each time, right during war and after war, that's where we're going to have economic booms. And then the decades after war is where we will go down. All right, that is Wall Street. Just thought you might want to see that. And this is the stock exchange. So we're going to actually play a simulation in class that will pretend to be here. It's going to be fun. Okay, so the prospect, this is a prospect-based mining company. This is just an example of stock. And this shows you, like, for example, $960,000 for 960 shares. So he invested in this company for $1 each. Okay, so that's how much those are worth. So if you think about if the stock goes up to $1, or let's say $2, then this is going to double the amount of money that they have because they bought it for $1. So if it goes up to $2, then their amount of money is going to double. However, if this goes down to 50 cents, then this is going to minimize down to 50%. And then when the stock starts going down, then they go ahead and sell it because most of this money was bought on a loan. Okay, so stock market crash is one of the biggest causes of the Great Depression. It starts on October 24th, and by the next week, they call it Black Tuesday. $14 billion were lost that day. Black Tuesday is a vocab word, so make sure you get that. $30 billion was lost for that whole week. And then all the way to 1932, the stock markets just go down and go down and go down. And as soon as they start going down, the prices start going down, all these people that have bought stocks on loans start to sell. And that is what's going to cause the stock market to go down. Now, not that many people invest in the stock market, maybe like 10% at that time. So really, you would think this wouldn't affect a lot of people. But when the stocks go down and people stop investing in stocks, then the companies don't have money to invest in their company, and then businesses begin to lay off workers, which leads to a big old cycle. Okay, so for example, so this is just kind of different way for you to see it. People stop spending money, the fear of stock prices are dropping, so they stop spending money. Then they start to sell their stock. Then Black Tuesday is the biggest day. 16 million shares were sold on that day. After that, no one wants to buy stock, and the prices drop. Now, if you were somehow not affected by the stock market, which most people were, even if you didn't have stock, if you bought these stocks after, they will end up going up in the 1930s because people bought them at rock bottom prices. So what are the effects of the crash? So investors and businesses lose millions of dollars. And because of that, these investors and businesses can't pay their loans back to the bank. So banks fail because they have no money to loan out, and there's no money circulating in the bank. And what people would do is, if you think about it, when you put your money in a bank, say you have $100, you're going to put it in the bank. Well, they're not going to keep it in a little box that says Laura Vinion's $100. They're going to take that money and circulate it and loan it out. So when people found out that banks were losing money, what did? They ran to the bank and got all their money out, and this is going to cause the bank to fail. So if you were that last, person that went to get their money out and they had no money left, you lost your money, you lost your savings. So then that leads to production cuts because businesses can't pay the banks back, and so production gets cut all across businesses all over the nation, and this is happening in the world too. The whole world's in a worldwide depression. Thousands of workers get laid off, unemployment rises. Because of all of this, the U.S. economy tanks, and that is what's going to begin the Great Depression. And all of this happens during Herbert Hoover's term from 1928. It happens pretty much right after he becomes elected. So this is the day of the stock market crash. Everybody ran down to the stock market, and we're trying to make changes and sell and panic and just, cry together, because it's not like you could do stock online at that point. You had to go down there, or you had to have a broker call in. Okay, here's a newspaper article from that day. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you have all of this, and I want to go back to that one slide. All of these things are really important, and please write down any questions you have, because we'll start off class with questions, and I specifically questions that you may have about the stock market. But this is the slide I want to go to right here. Decline in agriculture, textiles, and coal. And I kind of didn't really cover that, so I want to add real quick. There's a decline in agriculture because of the new machines. The farmers are overproducing, and nobody has money to buy it. Textiles and coal, that goes back to people can't afford things. So such as, if they can't afford the radio, okay? And if you can't afford the radio, then the copper wire, wood cabinets, and glass radio tubes that would go down. Those people would lose their jobs. And so it's just basically like a chain reaction. So just think about that. And that's it. I think that's it. So just be ready. We're going to play the stock market game. You need to make sure you understand what the stock is if you want to win the game. All right, guys. I'll see you in class.